Hello everyone, welcome back. This is going to be the first video in a small series of videos that are designed to kind of introduce RStudio, also conjunction RStudio Cloud. Sometimes I'll switch back and forth between the two, for my students in my monetary economics class. So we're in the middle of a pandemic, and some of the problems that we're having right now is not all the classes are at 100% capacity. As a result, some of them my students are online, learning coding through Zoom, which is just an awful way to learn coding. And so I decided to put some videos on just to kind of go over just the R components within my monetary economics class. So I'm assuming that most of my students, or at least for the perspective of this video, is an introduction to RStudio and what RStudio can do, and the basic functionality of the program. Now, if for my students, I recommend they start with RStudio Cloud. It's just easier that way, although if they want to download RStudio and R separately on their machines, they can. The functionality is largely going to be the same. The layout of the program is going to effectively be the same. There's only a couple of minor differences that are going to be important to them, and as I explain all the different things in the general user interface, I'll explain those relevant discrepancies or differences. So right now you're seeing the native RStudio application. So if you've logged into RStudio Cloud, you should basically, once you get inside, you should see nothing. Up on the upper right hand portion of the screen is usually a big blue button that says new project. You want to click on that new project. A spinning icon saying deploying project will show up, and then eventually you'll get to something that looks relatively similar to this, except in terms of colors it'll all be in white. So as you can see here, my RStudio isn't white. This isn't the native color. I've actually changed some of the preferences. So that's the first thing I want to show you, is how to get this to look slightly differently for you, and definitely for the case of this video, I'm going to want to do that. So if you go over to the Tools menu, you'll see Global Options, and the following kind of dialog box, regardless of operating system, should show up. So I'm going to click on the Appearance option menu, and here is where, if you want to change some of the different editor themes that are available. I'm currently operating under Tomorrow Night Bright. In terms of the code highlighting, it makes the background of the RStudio IDE dark, which is kind of just a little bit easier on my eyes because, hey, I'm an old man, so that's fine. Also, I'm going to want to change the editor size on this. Actually, maybe let's go 18. Let's just go big or go home, right? So I'm going to make the text a little bit bigger. That way it's easier for us to read for the sake of a video, especially a video that's showing up on YouTube. So you kind of see three general panes here in the RStudio environment when you first start. The first is going to be the console, and of course you see some different tabs. You'll see terminal, where you can actually bring up a terminal prompt, and then you'll also see jobs here showing up here. That may not, the jobs tab may not show up under RStudio Cloud. I don't remember. I haven't actually gone to look. But this is kind of like an output screen, if you will. When you first sign on to or RStudio rather, you're going to see kind of a this general dialog box here happening that'll give you the various version number that R is currently running on. Each version number kind of has its own little different names, and then you kind of have this general script here that basically is saying this is an open source license. If you move over to the right-hand side of the screen, you're going to see kind of two stacked windows. The first is on the top is usually highlighted on the Environment tab. This is kind of like a local memory, if you will. It basically is the things that I have saved within my project right now. So these are various objects that I've called and stored so that I can call them back or use them in calculations or do something else with them at a later time. You'll see a History tab. You'll see Connections tab if you're making connections over to like a GitHub library or something like that. And then of course you'll also see a tutorial showing up here, but we're not really going to get into those, but they're worth exploring, but we're just not going to deal with them too much for the context of this course. Then in the bottom tab, this one is going to kind of be changing up a little bit depending upon what you do. It usually starts with on default with the Files tab. As soon as you load RStudio, a home directory is chosen for you. It has to be chosen for you. In RStudio Cloud, it's just going to be your own individual account directory, and you can store various script files or whatever, even exported images if you want to call them up separately. But they'll show up here in this files. For me, this is just going to be my root directory on my computer. You'll see a Plots tab. If you graph something, it's going to show up there on that Plots tab. For packages, you'll see all the list of packages that are currently installed on your machine. The ones that are in the base package or the the project that you've just loaded in RStudio Cloud. They probably won't have all of these that are listed here. I've got quite a few downloaded that aren't downloaded by default. You're also going to see a help tab show up here. For instance, right now this one auto-populated to the replicate tab because I was trying to remember how to do something very specific with the replicate function. But this is where if you have a specific question about how to use a function in R, you can go here, and if it's a package that's been downloaded from CRAN, then it's going to automatically have its own various help files. If you download something from a GitHub directory, the amount of help, if you will, for lack of a better word, that this provides may be rather limited and may not be fully vetted. And then, of course, there's also a viewer tab, which we probably won't ever use inside of this course. Great, so this kind of gives you a bird's eye overview of what RStudio is. Now, of course, in my class, by this point, I've already explained what R is, but I'll just kind of briefly go over it. R is a object-oriented flexible programming language. It's designed to, from its initial conception, designed for statistical purposes, but because it's been open source and released into the wild, it has taken on a whole broad overview of various things it can possibly do. You can code websites with it, you can do document processing with it via R Markdown, you can write books with it. So there's all kinds of crazy things that you can do within RStudio. My own personal website and also my forecasting website are all done within RStudio exclusively, and everything top to bottom is RStudio. So great, so this kind of gives you a kind of an overview of this. Now in class you've also seen me typing out various things inside of script files, and I'm at least going to bring up a script file. If you go to File, New File, and then the very top one, RScript, this will generate effectively a text program or text file, but it's got some specific encoding properties in it so that it actually, RStudio identifies this as something where you can process individual lines of code line by line by line. And so usually by this point in my class, you're at least familiar with seeing all four of these tabs inside of the RStudio IDE open. And so this is going to kind of be what RStudio generally looks like. I wanted just to go over that in this video so that you're at least aware of all the various different things that are happening within RStudio. I'm going to start going over coding and specifically our plots for monetary aggregates in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.